amount of produce used in food service in just a decade. You also heard about the recent comments from Rich, from CEOs of some top restaurant chains, who are seeing what one of them called a sea change in consumer behavior. These are the same companies who 10 years ago could not sell a menu item that had a healthy, good-for-you emblem next to it, are really seeing a change in consumer behavior. And why is that? Well, I would suggest it's great news because we have finally taken full advantage of trends I've spoken about here at Fresh Connections and at Fresh Summit before. I believe we've reached a tipping point, at least in the United States, but I would hope also here in the South Pacific, because we are finally figuring out how to deliver and market tasty, nutritious, and profitable eating experiences in the dining room and in the restaurant table. I believe we've arrived at our own intersection through this voyage of discovery. In the US, I refer to it as the intersection of Main Street, Wall Street, and Pennsylvania Avenue. Said another way, we are combining what people want, how to make money giving it to them, and we've enlisted government and health authorities in developing a public policy that supports health and wellness. How we got to this point is not necessarily a pretty picture, especially if you are an evolutionary biologist. But I'm going to use another metaphor. I believe that, at least in the US, people have finally realized that we've hit the wall. We have become so overindulgent in the kinds of behavior you heard from Joe yesterday that we have finally felt the flames burning beneath our feet, and we have been driven to action. Now, some folks throw up their hands and say, well, you know what, you can't be like King Canute and hold up your hands and try and hold back the tide. Well, I would disagree. And I say that we can harness the trends going our way. We can learn from consumer goods marketers. We can find ways to reach consumers in the marketplace. A lot of this has to do with new technology. For example, the question that was asked about store signage a while ago of Greg. How can you put up signs to talk about product that is just 12 or 24 hours from the farm? Let me suggest to you that the old model of putting up signs 3 to 4 years from now is going to be gone, because that information is going to be on a QR code or some other kind of code that is on the point of sale or on the package, and you will hold your phone over it and you will be delivered that information automatically on your phone. The old idea of having signage that has to be kept up on a timely basis in stores or in restaurants, certainly in the next 5 years, we will look back and say, how on earth did we ever try to do that? One of those tipping points. We will have to harness innovation, and we have to understand that the marketing lessons of the past are being changed dramatically in a world that is flatter, a world that is smaller, and a world that is much, much quicker. First, a test. Michael, what is that? It's a digital camera. Felicity, what is that?
Digital camera on a table?
Okay, yeah, very good, very good. It's a digital camera. Anybody disagree with that? It's a what? Okay, now we're getting creative. I love the innovation that's coming out here. It's digital camera, the video recorder. Chances are, if you were like Michael and Felicity and you called this a digital camera, that you are what I'm going to let you know is a digital immigrant. Your choice of words was influenced by the fact that the camera in this picture is very different from the camera that you grew up with when you were a kid. If you called it a camera, you are a digital native. Think about that classification as we move forward. Here is another version of human evolution. And some of you are sitting back and thinking, what on earth does this have to do with fruit and vegetable marketing? More importantly, what does it have to do with innovation? Stick with me for just a little bit. Because there's a revolution coming in the way in which we go to market. The ability to impact with consumers, not only to meet their needs in terms of what they want to know about our products, but also, I would suggest, in how we hire them to work in our companies. And the way in which you define what you see in the picture before this really says a lot about your own perception and how you need to change. Consider this, for example. In the United States, more children aged 5 can use an iPhone than can tie their shoes. So let me go back again. More kids under 5, age 5, can use an iPhone than can tie their shoes. Which is more important to their development? Welcome to the brave new world of digital natives, folks. It's a term that was defined back in 2001 by Michael Prensky. But more to the point, he used it to draw a comparison with a country's natives for whom the local religion and language are natural and comfortable, compared to immigrants, which make up the vast majority of you in this room, who have to adapt and to adopt customs they are uncomfortable with. Do you print documents rather than comment online? Do you print an email? Do you save a hard copy? How many of you, I want to see an honest show of hands, how many of you mostly learn how to use computer programs by asking your kids? Come on. Okay, at least there's a few honest people around here. I certainly do, and they're a lot older than most of you. So, look at this again. On the left, the digital immigrant. On the right, the digital native. And this is the way leaders of our industry here in Australia and New Zealand identify this, a digital camera. It's not the way digital natives think about it. It's simply a camera. Kids, by the time they are 2, are being hardwired into new technology that we are now just adapting to. Their thought processes are developing differently, and they behave differently as well. For the marketers in the audience, this is what a traditional target might look like for you. Pretty comfortable. He grew up acquiring information from a single source, one at a time. He thinks about things in a linear logical progression. Used to accomplishing singular tasks, one at a time. And I'd venture to say that the majority of you in this room think that way. Why does it seem comfortable to us? Because this is the way most of us in this room have been brought up, have learned to think, have learned to process information. Now consider that even in this comfort zone, most people do not know the story of our industry, how our wonderful products got from seed to store or from tree to table. And that story has never been more important to them than it is today. Because as I spoke, I think a couple of years ago, I mentioned John Nesbitt and his Megatrends book. As our society becomes more and more high-tech, consumers are looking for more and more high touch. Whether it's 10-year-old kid making pancakes on a Sunday with dad, or it's families standing around an island in the kitchen cooking dinner together as a social experience. The more and more we become a high-tech society, the more and more people are going to gravitate towards experiences that balance that, that give this high touch. And folks, look at what we have here. We are the absolute epitome of high touch. It's why retailers have high touch produce departments right in the middle of the store as you walk in to create that image. They understand that. That social need is going to drive a huge and growing interest in fresh produce, not just in terms of a retail experience, but what it means in terms of taste sensations, connecting to farms. It's what's driven the demand for local, it's what's driven some demand for organic, it's what's driven an interest in cooking, It's getting back to basic foods that you actually recognize when you see them, that aren't just an ingredient in a processed product. The world of the digital native is very different. This is a pause and play generation, folks. Born after 1989, so they're 21, 22 at most. They've had the tools to interact globally with multiple sources from a very early age. Their learning styles are very, very different, and much less about static content and more about the link that carries them to the next page of high graphics, rich sound, profound interactivity. And those of you who heard Morris this morning got a whole dose of this. They are totally immersed in a culture of information sharing. This multitasking consumer is more used to creating content rather than passively sitting by while others communicate to them. And a key marketing message I can't stress enough: they are not a target for your marketing. You do not market to a digital native. You market with a digital native. Just consider the impact on traditional marketing approaches. Natives spend an average of 7 hours a day in the electronic world. 7 hours a day, at home, school, in the car, on the bus. Consider that by the age of 21, this digital native will have received on average 250,000 emails, instant messages and texts. They'll have used a cell phone for over 10,000 hours, played video games for 5,000. They'll have spent 3,500 hours on social media sites. And through it all, they'll see an astonishing 800,000, almost a million, marketing messages by the time they are age 16. How do you cut through that clutter? One of the things you have to understand for the future of marketing to digital natives, and I would suggest also to most of the digital immigrants who are learning to use the new technology, is that the digital footprints define who they are. And if you didn't hear Morris's presentation this morning, I urge you to look at it through the PMA ANZ site where it'll be available. I won't go into a lot of detail here. But digital technology will enable us to connect to one another and share experiences based on common values. Just like when you go on to a site like Amazon that'll make suggestions to you on what you might like because somebody who had a similar purchasing pattern also bought similar things. That is the marketing of the future. Think about the old style of how we used to market, with a picture and a concept on a box. This, folks, is the old school of advertising and marketing. Today, you have 90 million strong digital natives in the United States alone, and that even younger consumers are coming up and having huge impacts at a very early age on food purchases. Cornell did a study the year before last. And in the 3 to 5 year old range, kids of that age have an annual purchasing influence of $15 billion. Kids 6 to 8 have an influence of $45 billion. And older teens, just to give you another perspective, as they start to earn money from part-time jobs, $90 billion. When you ask parents who is most responsible in your home for selection of fast food, snack food, or what to eat for breakfast, they are 2 to 3 times more likely to say that one of their kids makes those decisions. So what are we as food marketers doing to reach these kids and influence them? Some other things you need to know about these digital natives. They are very, very intensely caring about the environment and about the people who grow their food. They don't know about our social consciousness